If you're anything like me, then you've heard your fair share of game design tips and guidelines. But with time, I forgot them, and the few I remembered weren't at the front of my mind while building my game. The only way to improve the game is to remember how. I'm going to remind you what you forgot, and maybe even teach you something new. We're going to start with some important planning tips, and while you may think you're too far into making your game to apply these, they are great for refocusing on what your game should be. Why must this game exist? If it's exactly like another game, why should anyone play this instead? Create a strong foundation for your game. What about it hasn't been done before or done this way? Create and focus on your goals. Constantly reevaluate your design and heavily scrutinize anything that doesn't work towards those goals. Your goals are your priority and will help you focus on what's important. Think through the logic and consistency of the game's events, because any requirements or consequences of those events could help the game's feel. For example, for a bank robbery, it would need to be planned, and adding a planning phase would help deliver that heist feeling, but don't distract from the focal point of the game. When learning how to make games, it's unlikely that your early projects will be good. Start with making small games to quickly move on from your mistakes. Also, if you don't have a lot of experience in game making, or let's be honest, even if you do, you can underestimate how big a project really is. Sometimes you can add too many features to a game. More features doesn't always equal a better game. Focus on the core of the experience. Next, we'll focus on improving the world your player's in. Make it fun to exist in, and you'll have a solid foundation. Color plays a large part in looking good, and different palettes even give different feelings. Learn about and find color palettes online. How your game looks is huge. Having movement on screen is important. It makes the game feel alive, and lets players know it hasn't frozen. Adding ambient noise makes the location feel real. What might you hear if you were there? You may not realize how many things actually make noise. You can even add things to the world just for their sound. When working in 2D, having multiple background and foreground layers adds depth. Make it so closer layers are larger and scroll faster, while farther layers are smaller and scroll slower. The parallax effect makes the world feel 3D. When it comes to art, shading makes a flat image feel 3D. Imagine the object in 3D and where the light is coming from. The more pointed away from the light, the darker it is. Having no music can leave a game feeling empty. Music sets the mood and fights that empty feel. You could try making your own music with free software, or search for CC0 music online. Backgrounds can have too much contrast in them and make it hard to see the game, or have too little contrast with the rest of the game and make it hard to see the game. Make game objects and platforms easily distinguishable. You can try using outlines and an interactable area if necessary. Being inconsistent with your art style looks bad. Keep outlines, pixel size, and whatever constitutes your art style consistent. Like almost all rules, it can be broken in the right way, but be careful with this one. These next tips are about actions that occur in the world. The feedback that the player receives for their input can make all the difference. Animation adds life, energy, and mood. A lack of animation may be dull or uninteresting. You should search for any uncommon action you forgot to fully animate, and sometimes there's room for extra animation within animations you already have. A noiseless action may be dull. A sound effect can bring it to life. Different noises change the feeling, and don't forget to add audio for the smaller sections of each action. If you find your animation lacking, try a whiteout frame to emphasize. It helps the player register when actions occur. For example, a piece of scenery wouldn't take damage, and the player would see that there is no whiteout frame and understand that it cannot be damaged. If you have an action missing intensity, try screen shake to emphasize. It can communicate intensity or largeness. I think it is great for the footsteps of something big. Just don't have too much shake in your game, or add a toggle. Some people don't like it. Freeze frames work just like whiteout frames. Freeze frames emphasize actions and can show the player when actions register. Particle effects enhance an action. You could have the particles be made of whatever environment the action is in, grounding the player in the environment. For example, dust clouds, kicked up grass, splashing, or bubbles underwater. Does your player see the effect of their presence? What might temporarily change in their environment? Bending grass, shifting bridges, automatic doors. It grounds the player in the environment. You can even allow other entities to affect the environment. Have your player leave an impression on the world. Think of what might permanently change with their actions. Many objects can be destructible. Foliage, buildings, terrain, and those changes feel rewarding. The player knows that what they did mattered and had an effect. People love structured chaos. Whether it's physics or the varied outcomes of cascading consequences, players' actions are shown to be effective, and now they're hooked on seeing it play out. Avoid repetitive animations, dialogue, or encounters. Sometimes one is played too often, so add alternate variations. It is not only more interesting, but often more realistic. If something is weak and isn't giving that feeling you wanted, then try exaggerating to make it clear. It's not only more impactful, but if you want, exaggeration can also be used as humor. These tips up next are about broader game concepts. While the moment-to-moment gameplay can be the core, the bigger picture players are left with shapes their opinion greatly. Some of the smallest details can have big impacts, like having a lot of complexity, detail, variation, or realism in certain areas. Left 4 Dead had over 100 different mocap animations for zombies dying. What details can take your game to the next level? Sometimes games get bloated and confusing. Simplify by removing unnecessary overlaps and function, but complexity and a variety of options is not always bad. Instead, find the right balance. A game can feel monotonous when it has no pace. Use high intensity to cap off a segment by adding a boss battle or any challenge. Then try using low intensity to give the player a break after the high intensity. But as players improve, they'll need more intensity to get that same feeling. If your players don't know how to have fun, they won't. You already know how to have fun in your game, but you must teach the player how to. Remember that they know nothing, that every second of confusion is a chance that they might just quit. Reward the player and emphasize achievement. Give them a sense of accomplishment and progression. Use things like upgrades, bosses, or memorable moments. If congratulating them improves their experience, then why not do it? You must be clear to your players and avoid any, "why did that happen?" or "what is going on?" A lack of clarity or consistency can result in confusion and frustration. Teach and warn them of consequences, or how else will they know? Players enjoy doing things their own way. Give them choices to make, and make them feel like their choice matters. But you must educate them on what outcomes to expect and avoid intimidating them with too many choices. You should have the gameplay feeling adhere to the overall feeling of the game. If the game's theme is calming, don't have the gameplay be intense. Think about how your gameplay feels now, and how it could be improved to better match or complement your theme. Lastly, watching this video once doesn't fix all your problems. You should apply these tips to remember them, but inevitably, you may need to be reminded of tips like these again. When you have the time, you should always try to be refreshing your knowledge and learning new things. There are plenty of great resources here on YouTube. Just don't procrastinate on your game by watching too many videos. Check out my next video to save time on YouTube.